All right. Thank you. On September the 28th, just this past September, not too many weeks ago, Liberian National Thomas Eric Duncan died of Ebola alone in a Texas hospital just 11 days after he was admitted. He became the first person to die in the United States from this highly infectious disease. The news reports that Duncan flew to the United States from Monrovia, and he filled out a questionnaire saying that he had not been in contact with anyone infected with Ebola. Well, it was later discovered that Duncan had, in fact, been in contact with a pregnant woman who was infected with Ebola and who later died. Now, I do not make light of this devastating disease and its effects that it's having on the victims and families. It is highly infectious and it is highly contagious. I use this story today because it is in the national news, it's all over our televisions, it's fresh in our memories, and I use it because of its power today to talk about how we can be infectious and contagious in a good way. The Apostle Paul was writing to the Christians at Thessalonica, and he speaks of how this small church, this little bitty church, was so contagious that the works that they did spread into the greater region. And so our quick lesson today is how can we in the 21st century, how can we at First Presbyterian Church, Mount Vernon, how can we in the state of New York, how can we emulate the qualities found in that little church in Thessalonica? How can we emulate, how can we imitate their patience, their persistence, and their contagious faith? Well, I want to give you three very quick, very short identifications or benchmarks of a contagious person. A contagious person is infected with the gospel. This letter, again, is a letter of thanksgiving and praise that Paul wrote to this church. Because he said in the text to them in his letter, I celebrate you because you turned from serving idols and pagans to serving the true and the living God. Now, I know you don't know all the story around the little church in Thessalonica, but they were a church that was steeped in the culture of paganism. That culture served many gods. They had all kinds of gods. But after hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ being preached to them, they made a decision to turn away from those idols in their society and to serve the living God. Now that may not seem like a big thing to us, but in fact it is a difficult thing to turn your back on the culture. It takes a lot of faith to go against the grain. It takes a lot of faith to do something different than what your culture is telling you to do. And so when others began to see the faith of this little church in Thessalonica, they too became infected with the gospel. The faith of the Christians in that church inspired them to want to do the same. And so if you are a contagious Christian today, you are infected with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Pay attention to me, don't pay attention to her. Okay, some of them have to leave. You are infected with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That means that you have come in contact with the gospel some kind of a way. Those two nurses who were later diagnosed with Ebola, one's name was Nina Ham and the other was Amber Joy Benson. They had to some kind of a way come in contact with the germs or the virus that caused Ebola in order to get it. And just